Are you or a loved one facing criminal charges in San Diego, California? If so, you may find this video helpful as we're going to delve into each courthouse, state court, federal court, and juvenile court where your case may be heard if you're facing criminal charges in San Diego. We'll talk about who the prosecutor is going to be. We'll talk about some key departments that your case may be heard in, and we'll explore some differences between state, federal, and juvenile court here in San Diego and learn a lot more about the criminal court system. Welcome to our simple guide on the multiple courthouses where your criminal case may be heard in San Diego. In this video, we're going to explore the different prosecutors, whether we're dealing with the district attorney, the city attorney, or United States attorney, whether your case is going to be heard in adult court, in downtown San Diego, in El Cajon, in Chula Vista, or in Vista, in juvenile court in Meadowlark, or downtown San Diego in the federal courthouse. We're going to talk about what that means in each courthouse for you, your case, or the case of a loved one. And we're going to show how where your case is heard may very well impact the end result of that case. Stay tuned. In this segment, we're going to talk about the 4 adult state criminal courts here in San Diego. We're going to explore the downtown San Diego courthouse. We're going to talk about the Chula Vista courthouse, talk about the East County, the El Cajon courthouse, and we're going to talk about North County, the Vista courthouse. We're going to talk about the similarities, the differences, and we're going to help you navigate your way through that courthouse from your first court appearance all the way to your last. First courthouse we want to talk about is the downtown San Diego Superior Court. It's located at 1100 Union Street, downtown San Diego on the corner of Union and C, right on the trolley line. Now, if you have a criminal case, your first court appearance is going to be your arraignment. If you're charged with a felony, that's going to be heard in Department 101. If it's a misdemeanor, it's going to be heard in Department 201, literally one floor above the felony arraignment department. Now, whether you're charged with a felony or a misdemeanor, the purpose of the arraignment is exactly the same. What's your plea, guilty or not guilty? What's your custody status, meaning are you in jail? Is bail going to be modified? Is bail going to be set? Is bail going to be increased? And then what court dates are you and your attorney going to set for the future? Now, if you remain in felony land, if your case is a felony and you're downtown, your next court date after the arraignment is going to be a felony readiness conference. That's going to be on the 11th floor of the courthouse. It's going to be in Department 1101, 1102, or 1103. There's no magic formula how you get to one department versus another. It's ultimately set by the court at the time of your arraignment. If you get sent to 1101, that's where your readiness conference will be for all purposes. Same goes for 1102, 1103, and obviously there's different judges in each department. At that readiness conference is an opportunity for your attorney, the district attorney, and the judge to talk about your case. They'll have a discussion whether there's more time that's needed, whether they're still waiting on certain documents to be produced, whether you want to exert your right to a trial and certainly at the very least a preliminary hearing and fight on, or whether there's a possibility for the case to resolve for some sort of negotiated plea or potentially a dismissal. Now, if you have a misdemeanor after your first court date, your readiness conference is most likely going to be in Department 202, just down the hall from where your arraignment was in 201 at the downtown courthouse. Similar type situation. Although with misdemeanors, the judge is not going to take as involved a position as he or she would on a felony, meaning a lot of the times you're working out next court dates, what if anything is going to happen, with the prosecutor, who would be the city attorney, on nearly every misdemeanor in the downtown courthouse. Now, if you're charged with a felony, another department that's going to come into play a lot will be Department 102. Now, Department 102 at the downtown courthouse is sort of like Grand Central Station of the building, right? Many things originate there and then get dispersed out throughout the courthouse. If you have a felony case, you'll see Department 102 usually for the first time on the day of your preliminary hearing if the case gets that far. Preliminary hearing is an opportunity where the district attorney needs to put on enough evidence to show that there's probable cause, more likely than not, that a felony was committed and that you were the one who did in fact commit the felonies. So you start in Department 102, and if everyone's ready to go, the judge will then assign you to a different department in the building. More often than not, that department won't be known until that morning when you, your attorney, and the prosecutor are in Department 102. Now, we just talked about a preliminary hearing, but if you're in the downtown courthouse or any courthouse for that matter, in state adult court, and you're charged with a misdemeanor, you're not entitled to a preliminary hearing. So when you're in misdemeanor land, if the case cannot resolve at one of these readiness conferences in Department 202, then you may very well have a trial or a motion. If you're doing those things, you're eventually going to make your way back down to Department 102, that Grand Central Station, and get sent out to a different department. Now, after a preliminary hearing in a felony case, you're going to go back to the department where your readiness conferences were before. So if you're in 1101 after your preliminary hearing, if the case survives, you're going back to 1101, same judge. Similarly, 1102, 1103. And then if the case goes to trial, you'll be back in Department 102 down on the ground floor of the courthouse. So that's sort of a primer of some of the key departments: 101, 102, 201, 202, 1101, 1102, 1103, where if you have a misdemeanor or a felony in the downtown courthouse, those are the departments more likely than not your cases are going through. Now, one thing that's really unique about the downtown courthouse as well is who the prosecutor is going to be. Because misdemeanors, nearly all misdemeanors in downtown San Diego, are going to be prosecuted by the San Diego City Attorney's Office. So if you have a misdemeanor downtown, it is almost a guarantee that your prosecutor will be a city attorney, not a district attorney, not an attorney general, certainly not a federal prosecutor. But if you're charged with a felony at the downtown courthouse, it could all but guarantee that the prosecutor will be a representative from the San Diego District Attorney's Office. So another key difference, specifically as we're discussing the downtown criminal courthouse located at 1100 Union on the corner of C and Union Street, downtown San Diego. All right, so now I want to talk to you about the South County Courthouse located in Chula Vista, 500 3rd Avenue, 91910 in Chula Vista on the corner of 3rd Avenue and H Street. Now, if you have a misdemeanor in Chula Vista, your case is going to start in Department 3. If you have a felony, your arraignment is going to be in Department 12. After you enter your not guilty pleas on your felony charge in Department 12, you're going to have a readiness conference in Department 14. Now, readiness conference in South Bay procedurally is the exact same as it is downtown, the exact same as it is in El Cajon, the exact same as it is in Vista. For purposes of preliminary hearing in the South Bay Courthouse, your case will arise. That Grand Central Station component of that building is in Department 16. From there, you'll get sent to a different department in the building. If you're in misdemeanor land, you're going to stay in Department 3 in the Chula Vista Courthouse, unless you're running a motion or unless the case goes to trial. Then you go back to Department 16. So for the purposes of the South Bay Courthouse located in Chula Vista, the main departments in criminal court are Department 3, Department 12, Department 14, and Department 16. Those are all but locks that you and your case and your attorney are going to be making their way through those departments as your case proceeds throughout the court process. Another courthouse, State Adult Criminal Courthouse in San Diego, is the East County Courthouse located in El Cajon. 250 East Main Street in El Cajon, 92020. East County, just like South Bay, just like downtown, just like Vista, has your arraignment departments, your readiness departments, your preliminary hearing, where that Grand Central Station would be for that courthouse. In East County, your arraignment almost always will start, whether misdemeanor or felony, in Department 3. If you have a felony, your first readiness in East County is going to be in Department 2. If you have a misdemeanor, it's likely going to be in Department 4. You have your preliminary hearing starts out of Department 11 on felonies. And then after your preliminary hearing, more likely than not, you'll have a readiness conference in Department 11. You won't go back to Department 2 where you might have been earlier in your case. As far as trial, as far as motions, that gets heard or at least starts in Department 11 at the East County Courthouse, and then you'll be sent out to any department throughout that building. So for purposes of East County, your primary courtrooms are Department 2, Department 3, Department 4, Department 11. If you have a case in the East County Courthouse, your attorney, great chance you're going to be navigating through those departments as your case proceeds throughout the process. All right, so the last of the 4 adult state criminal courthouses in San Diego that I want to talk to you about is the courthouse in Vista, North County. It is at 325 South Melrose Drive in Vista, 92081. Now, if you're dealing with misdemeanors, you're going to start in Department 14. That's the arraignment department, misdemeanors or felonies. Then from there, your readiness conference on a misdemeanor will be in Department 1, and then you'll be going potentially to Department 5 if you have a motion hearing or if the case ultimately proceeds to trial. So for misdemeanors in Vista, predominantly you're talking about Department 14 to Department 1, potentially to Department 5. Now for felonies, it's a little bit different. Whereas just like misdemeanors, the felony arraignment will start in Department 14. Before your preliminary hearing, your readiness conference will be in Department 6. Your preliminary hearing, if it goes that far, will then be heard out of Department 5. And then if the case survives a preliminary hearing, the case stays in Department 5 for future readiness conference. So basically in Vista, after a preliminary hearing, you're going to be in Department 5 for most purposes, unless the case goes to trial, and then you'll get sent to a different department. Now in Vista, it's really important to make sure of all the courthouses in San Diego that you really hire a law firm that is experienced in that courthouse, because Vista, although part of San Diego County, arguably is the most different and the most unique compared to the courthouses downtown, Chula Vista, and even in El Cajon. So these are questions you certainly want to ask of your attorney, whether your case is in East County or North County, make sure that law firm's familiar with the key players in that courthouse to maximize your case's chance of success. Now, earlier in this video, we talked about the 4 adult courthouses in San Diego County for a criminal case. Well, what happens if you're not an adult, right? If someone's under 18 years old? Well, your case is more likely than not never going to make its way into adult court, with certain exceptions. More likely than not, your case is going to be in juvenile court, and that is located in Meadowlark. It's located with a 163 sort of by Balboa, Genesee, in that area. And it's at 2851 Meadowlark Lane in San Diego, 92123. And that's where anyone under 18, their case will at least start there. More likely than not, it'll remain there. Now, juvenile court will have juvenile dependency cases and juvenile delinquency cases. Dependency are cases like involving where the state gets involved for the care of the minor. Juvenile delinquency is the most aligned to what in adult court is referred to as criminal court, right? Where someone's accused of committing a crime and they are then prosecuted in delinquency court. Now, there are a lot of differences in nomenclature, in how things are said, what is called something in adult court versus juvenile court, and how the underlying premises of juvenile court, right? It's supposed to be more reunification, rehabilitation, addressing the fact that we are dealing with kids no matter what the alleged conduct is. But there are some key differences in juvenile court, specifically in the terminology. So for an example, your first court appearance in adult court is your arraignment. You enter a plea. You're not guilty or guilty, you have future court dates. In juvenile court, it's known as a detention hearing. It's a determination whether or not the minor is going to stay in custody or not, or whether the minor can be returned to their parents, or whether they need to be placed in some sort of transitional living, basically not juvenile hall, not necessarily at home, probably somewhere in between, with some of the great programs that are available out there in juvenile court. Another thing that we hear a lot is, well, what's an adjudication hearing? Well, that's a trial for all intents and purposes, but what the difference is in juvenile court is you don't have a right to a trial by jury, so they're bench trials. Judges are making that determination. Key difference between juvenile court and adult court in San Diego, and anywhere for that matter, within the state of California. And finally, you hear the term disposition hearing. Well, that's a sentencing. In adult court, that's when you know what the sentence is, and that's when a judge will pronounce judgment. Make sure you have a firm that has an attorney or attorneys that are familiar with that division. Each courthouse is different. Whereas judges rotate, prosecutors rotate, how things are done usually stays the same depending on the specific branch. All right, so up until this point, we're talking about state court. We're talking about adult and state court. We're talking about juvenile court. Let's talk about federal court. Southern District of the state of California, right? Southern District in federal land encompasses Imperial County and San Diego counties. Your case starts in El Centro. It may start in El Centro. It's eventually going to make its way downtown. There are 2 federal courthouses. They're both right on Broadway there, right across the street from the Hall of Justice, right nearby, 2 blocks away from the state criminal courthouse. And federal is a different animal for a number of reasons, right? Different laws, different prosecutors. One of the key differences is you're dealing with the United States Attorney's Office. You're not dealing with the district attorney. You're not dealing with the California Attorney General. You're certainly not dealing with the San Diego City Attorney's Office. And you're also dealing with federal judges. So your first couple of appearances, if you're talking about bond, if you're making your initial appearance where you enter a not guilty plea, those types of things, you're handling those in magistrate court before a magistrate court judge, whether it's in El Centro or in downtown San Diego. And then if the case proceeds, if the case is indicted and proceeds by way of an information, then eventually you'll make your way up to a district court judge who's appointed by the President of the United States, confirmed by the Senate. And that's when you'll have like a motion hearing and a trial setting date. That's when you'll ultimately be sentenced if you are in fact convicted. And if you proceed to trial, that district court judge will be pre-assigned to handle your case for purposes of trial and sentencing. So really unique situation in federal court where you stay in magistrate court a lot before a magistrate court judge until the very end. And there are situations where your first appearance in federal court before a district court judge, the judge who will actually be sentencing you, is actually at sentencing. And clients always struggle with that. We're like, I don't even know who this judge is. This is the first time they're going to see me. So it is essential that you make sure that the attorney representing you is familiar with that federal courthouse, is familiar with those judges who likely will be sentencing you, because for many instances, the first time that judge will put eyes on you, the accused, will actually be at your sentencing. So it's essential to know who the key players are. It's essential to know who the judges are and how things are handled in federal court, whether you're dealing with magistrate court or ultimately upstairs, so to speak, in district court. Navigating the court system can be complicated. It's a stressful time. We get it, right? You're charged with a crime. Your loved one's charged with a crime. Their freedom is at stake. Their future is at stake. Their reputation is at stake. Their job, everything that they hold dear to them. You need to make sure you surround yourself with a law firm that understands where these cases will be heard, could tell you the differences between the case being in Vista versus the case being in Chula Vista, what that looks like, who the judges are going to be, how that strategy may be different in one courthouse versus the other, especially when we're talking about juvenile court, especially when we're talking about federal court compared to state court. So in this video, we've gone through it all. We've talked about the downtown courthouse and the progression of your case, whether a misdemeanor or a felony, what department your case is going to be heard in, who the prosecutor or agency is going to be. We talked about Chula Vista. We talked about what that looks like, district attorney, the key departments down there and how that's different from downtown. We then talked about El Cajon, different courthouses there, how that compares and contrasts who the prosecutor is, similarly with the Vista courthouse. And then we broke it down and delved into juvenile court and then ultimately in federal court. At the end of the day, no matter where your case is heard, it all really boils down to one thing. You want to surround yourself with a locally experienced criminal defense law firm who understands where your case is going to be heard, knows the judges, knows the prosecutors, knows how to successfully navigate your case through that courthouse to ensure that you receive as good, if not a better outcome there than you could anywhere else.